In August of 1998, 11-year-old Nicky Verstappen had finally gotten the nerves to head to a summer camp and leave his home and his beloved dog behind. What was not known is that lurking in the deep forest near this Netherlands summer camp was a man who was living in a tent known as an experienced woodsman and survivalist who routinely uses natural hiding places, mountain hunts, and caves for shelter. This man even had a YouTube channel about his backwood adventures. 35-year-old Joe Hackney was a former scoutmaster and loner with a terrible secret. He was attracted to children and had a prior record of being a child. After Nicky had an encounter with this evil monster, it would end badly and the 11-year-old boy would never make it back home. The murder would remain unsolved for 20 years. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. Come on into my little crime den. Before we begin, just make sure to smash that subscribe button though. Also, just a reminder that I do have another channel I just started called Strange She Shed, which is on the lighter side because my mind needed a break from true crime. And yours probably does too. On that channel, I react to odd TikToks and reality shows. So if interested, you can find the link to that channel in the comments. Nicky Verstappen was born on March 13, 1987 in Haarlem, sure that's wrong, in the district of Limburg, in a small community in Netherlands of about 800 residents. Nicky was the eldest of two children in a tight-knit family. His dad was Peter, his mom Bertie, and he had a little sister. He loved his dog, so definitely my kind of boy. This is such a precious picture of Nicky with this dog. Nicky was a laid-back, friendly boy who loved to play soccer. Nicky had not ever been to summer camp. He was just a homebody in the summer and was afraid he would get homesick if he went. Nicky's best friend wanted him to go, and his family encouraged him to go with his friend, telling him that it would be a fun adventure and memory. And usually it is. Unfortunately, not for Nicky. With a little hesitation, he finally decided to pack his bags, hug his family, and kiss his dog goodbye before getting on the bus. Just before the bus was about to leave, his best friend pulled out and opted to stay home. Nicky decided to stick it out and stayed on the bus as he waved to his little friend and family goodbye. 36 of his classmates headed out in the bus for the 45-minute journey to the De Hockop camping grounds. Doubt if I got that right. De Hockop? I'm sure that's wrong. So if you're from the Netherlands, I apologize right now. I don't know how to pronounce any of these words. And it shows. Nonetheless, he went on a camping trip at a summer campground. After arriving, the boys were divided into 10 different tents. Nicky ended up with 4 other boys in a tent they called Night Riders, since each group was supposed to name their own tent, and that's the name they chose. The first day was a lot of fun with team building activities and games. That night, all the campers huddled up around a campfire and did the typical, telling ghost stories and scaring each other to pieces. Wide-eyed and thrilled, the youngsters were sent to bed around 10 p.m. They were hyped up from the ghost stories, spooking each other out, talking about monsters and how the monsters were going to come in your tent. Unfortunately for Nicky, a monster would appear. The camp leaders went to the biggest tent they had and ate and drank till way past midnight. As they went to bed, everyone was happy, and summer camp was off to a great start, and there were a lot of activities planned for the next day, so they needed some sleep. At 6 a.m. the next morning, one of the boys had to head out to the outhouse. When he noticed Nicky was not in his sleeping bag, he just assumed that maybe Nicky got up to relieve himself. When everyone was awake later that morning, Nicky could not be found. Camp leaders thought he had run away, and then they called his parents. His parents knew he had not run away and quickly drove to the camp to search for him. The first thing Mom Bertie noticed was that Nicky's shoes were still in the tent. If he was planning to walk away, surely he would have put on his shoes first. Together with some of the camp leaders, they searched the immediate area, frantically calling Nicky's name, but there was no answer. Around midday, they decided it was time to call the police. His mom was panicked and scared and freaking out. Dad was too. And I can't even imagine, it must be the worst feeling in the world not to know where your child is, not to know what's happening to your child. There can't be anything worse than that, a missing child. It was a hot 95 degrees that day, one of the hottest days of the whole summer, which slowed down the search efforts. The following morning, there was still no sign of Nicky. The officers, along with the camp leaders, decided to cancel the camp. Meanwhile, the search effort intensified as it became evident that Nicky wasn't a runaway. Police dogs were brought in and a plane did an aerial search of the area. The whole day resulted in no sign of Nicky, and with sunset around 9:15, they were running out of daylight. Then just before 9 p.m. on Tuesday, the 11th of August, Nicky's uncle, who was one of the searchers, saw something laying beneath a small pine tree. It was the lifeless body of 11-year-old Nicky. The spot was less than a mile away in a pine grove where people actually went to pick out Christmas trees in the winter. His little body was naked from the waist up. He was wearing red pajama pants and blue underpants. The pajama pants were inside out and front to back. There was a wound to his head, but on first impressions, it did not look like it was severe enough to have killed the little boy. Can you imagine being that uncle and finding your nephew in that? I have a little nephew myself, and in that moment, it's going to make me cry. In that moment, I can't imagine anything worse that you could see before you. Love my nephew. He's my brother's grandchild, but he's pretty much like mine. So I guess he's my great nephew. But there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. And I can't imagine, having to see that child like that. Despite being in a pine grove next to farmland and bush, Nicky's feet were absolutely clean. He definitely did not walk to the spot where he was found. The theory was that he was killed somewhere else and his body was carried out to that spot and left there. The scene was near a parking lot that was known as a place where men would meet each other for a quickie in the backwoods. Just put it like that. Nicky's parents were in a state of shock and felt guilt for encouraging him to go to camp. All the camp leaders were interviewed through investigation. It was learned that some of the leaders had disturbing backgrounds, including the 80-year-old founder of the camp, Joe Barton. He was the former principal of the primary school in High Bloom, but had lost his job after he was convicted of child essay in the 1950s. It was also learned that Barton had actually started the local soccer club, even though he was a predator, and was often seen in the changing rooms at the soccer club. He also had pictures of boys that he had taken at the camp that they found, and they were just in their underpants. After Nicky's death, a 15-year-old girl came forward and said that she had attended summer camp earlier that year, and she had reason to believe that Barton had SA'd her while she was sleeping. She was unwell one evening and he had given her medication that turned out to be adult sleeping tablets. When she woke up, her clothing was just disheveled and different to the way it was when she went to bed. It'd be so scary. She also experienced lower abdominal pain and discomfort. She immediately suspected the elderly Barton of her. Because she didn't report the incident earlier, there was not much that police could do so long after the fact. And there was also not enough evidence to arrest him in connection with Nicky's kidnapping and murder. Only hours after Nicky's body had been found, police stopped a 35-year-old Nand named Josh BRECH. He was cycling near the crime scene around midnight. When police asked BRECH what he was doing out cycling at that hour, he said that he was just delivering letters to scout members as it was too hot in the daytime hours to have done so. As it had been a very hot day, officers found his explanation plausible and let him go. The postmortem examination took place 3 days after Nicky's death. The report said that Nicky was drugged and his body showed signs of SA. The pathologist was unable to determine his cause of death. The best guess they had was that he died from suffocation, but there was not enough evidence to prove it conclusively. Also said he had been kidnapped and essayed up to 8 hours before his death. There were many unknowns in this case. One of the biggest questions was, how did Nicky disappear from the tent? He was 11 years old. If someone grabbed him against his will, he would have screamed and fought. If he was drugged and taken, the other boys in the tent would surely have noticed someone enter their tent and take him. Perhaps Nicky had gone to the toilet, but he would have put on his shoes for that, you'd think. He had to have been carried, or surely he was, because his feet were clean of debris. How else would he have got there? How was a man able to carry an 11-year-old boy very far? And he's found a mile from the camp, so that's a long ways to carry a boy. The case soon became cold. Barton, the camp founder, died in 2003. Investigators actually exhumed his body in 2010 to compare his DNA with the DNA on Nicky. They did not match. Barton was not the killer. In 2018, after advancements in DNA, about 20,000 men in Limburg area came forward and provided samples for a mass testing program, the largest testing ever done in the Netherlands. The cyclist seen on the morning Nicky's body had been found, Josh BRECH, had been on an extended wilderness hiking trip just a few months before they had actually gave their samples, so he was not there to volunteer to give his. But the DNA of a close relative showed enough similarities with the 1998 sample to flag him as a potential suspect. He was formally reported missing in April by his family, and after a search of his home, the forensic scientists successfully lifted DNA from his pajamas, and it tested positive with 100%. How often would you get that? 100% that it was him. No denying it, it was definitely Josh BRECH that had kidnapped, held this little boy for 8 hours, and murdered him. There was one problem. BRECH was a survivalist that knew how to disappear for months at a time. BRECH had his own YouTube channel that can still be found on YouTube today. He was a photographer who enjoyed taking videos and pictures of nature. Don't want to know what else he took videos of, but those are not on his YouTube channel. Thank God. On his channel, Oakleaf NL, he also has videos of himself teaching young boys how to survive in nature. That is quite scary. I don't know what these boys had to go through, but it is scary that people would let him that close to their children. He was a suspect in a separate SA case of two 10-year-old little boys. Because of these allegations against the two boys, he left the Boy Scouts, where he'd been working for quite a while. He was never charged in this case. In August of 1998, the same month as Nicky's murder, child images were found on his home computer, but he only received a warning. He also worked in a kindergarten for a while. BRECH had been treated for having committed SA against children in the past. Police determined that he prepared to disappear and live off grid as he had upskilled himself in survival strategies and techniques. His computer search history showed that he was well prepared, and he had researched small towns all over Europe, places where Dutch news would not make the airwaves, and he could stay hidden. Law enforcement decided the only way to smoke him out of his hiding place was to appeal for help from the public. 1 week after the press conference, a Dutch man living in northern Spain actually recognized BRECH's photo in the newspaper and reported his location to police. The now 55-year-old BRECH was arrested after they found him hiding in a commune 30 miles north of Barcelona, Spain. After 20 years, the man that had murdered this little boy was finally arrested. Josh BRECH was charged with manslaughter, not murder. Manslaughter is a lesser charge because there was said not to be enough evidence to show that the murder was premeditated. During the trial, Nicky's mother yelled to BRECH, "Look at me! Look at me!" But he turned his head away from her and looked down at his feet. What a monster. BRECH was sentenced to 16 years imprisonment in the death and SA of Nicky. I don't know why the sentences are so light in the Netherlands, but it's scary. But I guess there's not a lot of crime there from what I understand. Anyway, it's just sad for the family of little Nicky, and I pray that they're doing good. I'm so glad after 20 years they were able to finally find answers of what happened to little Nicky, although I still don't understand how this man got an 11-year-old boy out of a tent so quietly. That's just scary. Anyway, I want to tell you guys bye. I love y'all, and I'm going to do the next video over some bizarre stuff that I find, no telling what, at Strange She Shed. So if you want to see that one, because I will not put that one on this channel, then you might ought to go over to Strange She Shed and subscribe. I love you guys, and I'll let Simon tell you bye. Tell him that you're going to go have a fun day now. Tell him we do. Yeah, I know. We have lots of fun together, don't we, Bubba? He's a good boy. He's a good boy most of the time. He has his moments. He has his moments. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I know. Let's go do it. Let's go have some fun. Let's